ہر دور کے نقیب ہیں، قرآن و اہل بیت، ہر دور کے نقیب ہیں، قرآن و اہل بیت، انسان کا نصیب ہے، قرآن و اہل بیت، اللہ کے قریب ہیں، قرآن و اہل بیت، محبوب کے حبیب ہیں، قرآن و اہل بیت، حق اہل بیت کا ہے خدا کی کتاب پر لاکھوں درود آل رسالت معاب پر، ہر دور کے نقیب ہیں۔ درود پڑھ لیں، اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔
پر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔ بارہ دیگر صلوات۔ ایمان کی تصویر نظر آتی ہے، ایمان کی تصویر نظر آتی ہے، قرآن کی تفسیر نظر آتی ہے، اللہ تیرے گھر کی فضائے زہرا اللہ تیرے گھر کی فضائے تطہیری تطہیر نظر آتی ہے، ایمان کی تصویر صلوات ہو گئے رخصت جہاں سے مومنوں مولانا نقی، ہو گئے رخصت جہاں سے مومنوں مولانا نقی، آج پھر سادات کے گھر ہے صف ماتم بچھی، آج پھر سادات کے گھر میں ہے صف ماتم بچھی، ہو گئے رخصت جہاں سے مومنوں مولانا کی، کٹ گئی رہ کر جوانی سامرا کی قید میں، کٹ گئی رہ کر جوانی سامرا کی قید میں، یاد کر کر کے اسیری سید سجاد کی، آج پھر سادات کے گھر ہے صف ماتم بچھی، ہو گئے رخصت جہاں سے مومنوں مولانا کی، سر میں ہے خاک یتیمی کرتے ہیں ماتم حسن، سر میں ہے خاک یتیمی کرتے ہیں ماتم حسن، زہر سے بابا کی زنداں میں شہادت ہو گئی، آج پھر سادات کے گھر ہے صف ماتم بچھی، ہو گئے رخصت جہاں سے مومنوں مولانا کی، گلشن آل نبی پر ہے اداسی چھا گئی، گلشن آل نبی پر ہے اداسی چھا گئی، آ گیا زد میں فضا کے گلے باغ نقی، آ گیا زد میں فضا کی ہے گلے باغ نقی، آج پھر سادات کے گھر ہے صف ماتم بچھی، ہو گئے رخصت جہاں سے مومنوں مولانا کی، پی لیا جام شہادت اے میرے 10ویں امام، پی لیا جام شہادت اے میرے 10ویں امام بخش دی اسلام کو یوں آپ نے ہے زندگی آج پھر سادات کے گر ہے صف ماتم بچھی ہو گئے روس جہاں سے مومنوں مولانا کی ہو نقی کے قاتلوں پر ہر گھڑی اللہ کی لعنت ہو نقی کے قاتلوں پر ہر گھڑی اللہ کی لعنت بن گئے مولا کے قاتل حشر تک ہے لعنتی آج پھر سادات کے گر ہے صف ماتم بچھی ہو گئے روس جہاں سے مومنوں مولانا کی یوں اٹھی جواد میت شاہ کی پردیس میں یوں اٹھی جواد میت شاہ کی پردیس میں خود قضا تابوت پر ہے اشک برساتی رہی خود قضا تابوت پر ہے اشک برساتی رہی آج پھر سادات کے گر ہے صف ماتم بچھی ہو گئے روس جہاں سے مومنوں مولانا کی آج پھر سادات کے گر ہے صف ماتم بچھی ہو گئے رخصت جہاں سے مومنوں مولانا کی صلوات پڑھیں گے سورہ فاتحہ بسم اللہ کون سا ظلم تھا جو مولا نقی نے نہ سہا کون سا ظلم تھا جو مولا نقی نے نہ سہا بد دعا دل میں مچلتی رہی ہونٹوں کو سیاہ ایک دل سنگ خلیفہ نے مگر خیر کیا ہائے مظلوم کو پانی نہ دیا زہر دی ہائے مظلوم کو پانی نہ دیا زہر دیا پاس اس دم کوئی ہمدرد نہ شیدائے تھا قسم پرسی میں عجب عالم تنہائی تھا قسم پرسی میں عجب عالم تنہائی تھا عسکری روتے تھے زانوں پہ رکھے باپ کا سر بیر امداد برادر تن کوئی کربلا ایسے میں آ جاتی تھی جب پیش دل سے آتی تھی یہ آواز وہ جنگل تھا یہ گھر دل سے آتی تھی یہ آواز وہ جنگل تھا یہ گھر گود میں فرق مطہر ہے یہاں بابا کا تھا وہاں جلتی ہوئی ریت پہ سردادا کا تھا وہاں جلتے ہوئی ریت پہ سردادا یہاں بھی میں نے پلایا تھا پدر کو پانی 3 دن سے وہاں پیاسا تھا نبی کا جانی یہاں میسر ہے کفن دفن میں ہے آسان آئے بے گورو کفن لاش کی واؤریان آئے بے گورو کفن لاش کی واؤریان پارائے دل ہے یا عشق بہانے کے لیے واتا بیمار پسر قید میں جانے کے لیے واتا بیمار پسر قید میں جانے کے لیے ان مناظر کے تصور میں تھی یہ محبوب ناگہاں بولے یہ گھبرا کے ہمارے مول بہر تعظیم اٹھاؤ مجھے اے ماہلک خلد سے لائے ہے تشریف رسول دو ساتھ خلد سے لائے ہے تشریف رسول دو ساتھ زہرا کے شہ بدر و حنین آئے میرے لینے کو حسن اور حسین آئے میرے لینے کو حسن اور حسین آئے ہیں پھر اٹھا کر سر پر نور پکارے یہ امام میرے نانا میرے دادا میری دادی کو سلام کہہ کے یہ گر گئے تکیے پہ جو مولا ہے عسکری روئے تڑپنے لگی ارواح گر عسکری روئے تڑپنے لگی ارواح کرم پرسہ دیتا تھا نہ کوئی نہ گلے ملتا تھا پنجتن روتے تھے اور عرش خدا ہلتا پنجتن روتے تھے اور عرش خدا ہلتا تھا فاطمہ کرتی تھی یہ بین تڑپ کے ہر بار میرے شبیر کے پوتے تیری غربت کے مثل شبر کے جو نیلا ہے تنظار وقت رہلا تجھے پانی بھی ملا رخصت وقت رہلا تجھے پانی بھی ملا کب گھر آنا کہیں ایسا کوئی مظلوم ساتواں تو میرا پوتا ہے جو مسموم ہوا ساتواں تو میرا پوتا ہے جو مسلوم ہوا کون سا ظلم تھا
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يوصينا معه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بغض الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت محدود ولا أجل ممدود فترى الخلائق بقدرته ونشر رياح برحمته ووتد بالسخر ميدان أرض ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيبنا وحبيب رب العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعن على أدائهم أجمعين من أول يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولو أن ما في الأرض من شجرة أقلام والبحر يمده من بعده 7 أبحر ما نفدت كلمات الله إن الله عزيز حكيم صدق الله العلي العظيم. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we had said 2 days ago, tonight we commemorate the Shahadat of our 10th holy Imam, Imam Naqi a.s. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And I had said 2 days ago, that we Shias, we do not hold these two Imams, especially the 9th Imam and the 10th Imam, at the same level as, for example, Amir al-Mu'mineen. We have love for all of the Imams, that's absolutely true. But the way we show that love for these two Imams is not the same way that we show our love for Amir al-Mu'mineen. When it comes to showing our love for Amir al-Mu'mineen, the halls of every masjid in any Shia country will be completely full in the day of his Shahadat and the day of his Wiladat. When it comes to showing our love for Imam Hussein a.s., the 3rd of Shaban, every Shia masjid, every Shia mosque will be full of mu'mineen and mu'minat on when? The 3rd of Shaban and the 10th of Muharram. When it comes to Imam Hassan a.s., the same thing. The halls will be full. But when it comes to the Shahadat or the Wiladat of the 9th and 10th Imams, the halls become empty. They become empty. And this is a huge problem. Why? Because we Shias still do not understand the importance of these two Imams. That's why. In the Amal of Rajab, I was speaking with some of the brothers before the lecture. In the Amal of Rajab, there's a dua from Imam Zaman alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala. In that dua, Imam Zaman alayhi salam, the Imam of our time, he says in that dua, Allahumma inni as'aluka bil mawludaini fi Rajabin Muhammad ibn Ali al-Thani wa ibnahi alaykum salam wa rahmatullah wa ibnahi Ali ibn Muhammad. Imam Zaman alayhi salam, he says, Ya Allah, I ask you by those two who were born in the month of Rajab, specifically Muhammad ibn Ali al-Thani. Muhammad ibn Ali al-Thani is whom? Imam Taqi alayhi salam. Muhammad ibn Ali al-Awwal is Imam Baqir alayhi salam. He is the first Muhammad who is the son of Ali. Muhammad ibn Ali al-Thani is Imam Muhammad Taqi alayhi salam. He is the second Muhammad who is the son of that second Ali. And Imam says, not only by him, but I also ask you by his son, Ali ibn Muhammad. It's through these two I seek to become near you. It's through these two I seek to become near you. I want to become closer to you. Why did the Imam of my time use these two Imams when Amir al-Mu'mineen, who was born on the 13th of Rajab, why did he not use Amir al-Mu'mineen's name? What was the reason? Amir al-Mu'mineen is Abul Aima. He is the father of all the Imams. Why is the last Imam not saying, Ya Allah, I seek to get closer to you in this month of Rajab by these two? Why does he say by these two? Why does he not say by Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam? This is why I say that we Shias do not give the credit to these two Imams as we should. When the Imam of our time, who we cry for day and night, saying, Ya Allah, make him appear. When this Imam is getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by these two, shouldn't we also get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by these two? And yet, look at the halls in any masjid that you go to on these nights of their wiladat and their shahadat. They become empty. When the people that you're supposed to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through, when their nights come, we leave the masajid. But why did the Imam, and I just want to point quickly, because 2 days from today, it's also the wiladat of the same Imam. But why did Imam Zaman al-Islam use these two? Because of all the Imams, when it came to showing what Imamat is, these two Imams showed it like no other Imam. What do I mean? When it came to the knowledge of Imamat, and we look at Amir al-Mu'mineen, what do people say? He learned from the Holy Prophet. When it comes to the knowledge of Imamat, when we look at Imam Hassan, he learned from Imam Ali. When we look at Imamat, the knowledge of Imamat, we look at Imam Hussein, he learned from Imam Ali. When we look at Imam Zainul Abidin, he learned from Imam Hussein. When we look at Imam Baqir, he learned from Imam Zainul Abidin. When we look at Imam Jafar Sadiq, he learned from Imam Hud Baqir. What do I mean? All of these Imams, their age, what was it? What was their age? All of these Imams, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, he was shaheed at the age of 63. 63. Imam Hussein al-Islam, he was shaheed at the age of, what age? No, 56. Imam Hussein al-Islam, he was shaheed at the age of 56. He was still an adult when he received that knowledge from Amir al-Mu'mineen. Yes or no? Imam Hassan al-Islam was an adult when he was receiving knowledge from Amir al-Mu'mineen. We as Shias, we say that the knowledge of an Imam is not learned, it's passed, it's given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's these two Imams, the 9th Imam and the 10th Imam, that proved and showed to the world that knowledge is truly given from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do I mean? Imam Muhammad Taqi al-Islam, he took on the responsibility of Imamat and showed the knowledge of an Imam at what age? At the age of 9. At the age of 9. Imam Ali al-Naqi al-Islam, he took on the responsibility of Imamat and showed the knowledge of Imamat at the age of 6. At the age of 6. This is why Imam Zaman al-Islam uses both of these Imams and says, I asked through these two personalities to get near you. Why? Because it was these two personalities who showed the world the knowledge of Imamat at a very young age. At the age of 6, at the age of 8 or 9. At these ages, when children are playing video games, they're still playing outside. These two Imams, they taught the world, no, we are completely different from everyone else. When children at that time, no video games at that time, but at that time, whatever games that the children will play together outside, the Imams, these two showed, no, we are completely different from everyone. And yet look at how we Shias today show our respect or show how much we understand these two Imams. 2005, 2007, or 2006, 2007, bombings happened in Samara. Most of us, we lived through that. We heard about it. We saw it. Maybe we were in ziyarat when those bombings occurred. in Samara. That's the burial place of whom? That person who we are commemorating tonight, him and his son. Yet, how many of us, even after hearing about those, went and looked at the history of Imam Ahmad, Taqi a.s, Imam Naqi a.s, Imam Hassan Askari a.s, the two Imams that are buried in Samara, Imam Naqi a.s, Imam Hassan Askari a.s, father and son are buried in Samara. In Kazmain, grandfather and grandson are buried in Kazmain, meaning Imam Musa Kazim a.s and Imam Muhammad Taqi a.s. They're buried in Kazmain. Father and son Imam Ali Naqi and Imam Hassan Askari a.s. buried in Samara. When those bombings happened in Samara, how many of us went and looked at the life of Imam Naqi a.s. or Imam Hassan Askari a.s? Not many of us. Emotionally, we showed our support. Some of us, we donated to rebuilding the shrine of the Imam. But what did we do to enlighten ourselves about the ulum of the Imam, about the knowledge of the Imam? Not much. And inshallah, that's what I want to talk about tonight. What ilum did this Imam give for the Shias? Because this verse that I started this lecture off with, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْ أَنَّمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ مِنْ شَجَرَةٍ أَقْلَامٌ. If the whole world, if all the trees in this world were pens, and the seas were ink, and you added 7 more seas to that, what would happen? Nafidat kalimatullah. You still would not be able to write what? The kalimat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the Imam that does the tafsir of this verse. Why? Alaykum salam wa rahmatullah. Why? Because at the age of 6, he was being tested about his imamat. He was being tested about his knowledge. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. In the life, during the life of the 9th Imam, the 10th Imam, the 11th Imam, you have to remember that there's a very famous hadith in the Shia school of thought, in the Sunni school of thought, where the Holy Prophet said that in my lineage there would be 12 Imams. There'd be 12 Imams. Everyone knew that there would be 12 Imams. They also knew that these Imams would come from the line of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And the last one that will arrive, he will completely uproot whatever evil was in this world, and he would rule with justice just as it was ruled with injustice. This was a saying of the Holy Prophet that became famous. And now when you come to the 9th Imam, these rulers know that there's only 3 more left. When you come to the 10th Imam, they know now that there's 2 more left. When you come to the 11th, they know now there's only 1 left between their rule being uprooted and their rule staying. So when you look at the life from Imam Taqi alayhi salam all the way to Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salam, you see one thing in common. That all of these Imams, they were under house arrest. All of these Imams. Imam Naqi alayhi salam, the way he was put under house arrest, you don't see with any of the other Imams. You don't see with any of the. What do I mean? When he was under house arrest, the Basi Khalifa Mutawakkil, he would send people to bring the Imam out of the house at odd times of the night. He would tell them, I don't care if he's on his prayer mat, go bring him. I don't care if he's reading the Quran, go bring him. I don't care what he's doing, go bring him to me. And the servants of the Khalifa, they'd go in the middle of the night. We're here to search the house. What are you searching for? We've heard you collect money. We heard you have weapons. We heard you're writing books. Imam, he goes, come on and search. If you want a light, I'll give you my light. Here, take this light and search. They'd go in, they'd find nothing. They find nothing. In the middle of the night. The way Imam Naqi a.s. was brought to Samara, do you all know how that is? the Khalifa's governor in Medina, he writes to the Khalifa, he says to him that Imam Naqi, there's money being brought to him, he's hoarding money and he's going to use this against you. People come to him and they learn from him. The people, the masses, they gravitate towards this personality. If you don't do anything against him, he's going to rise up against you. He's collecting weapons, he's collecting money to rise up against you. Imam Naqi a.s, he found out that this governor, he wrote this letter to the Khalifa, and he himself, he writes a letter. And in that letter, he says that this governor that you have, he holds enmity towards me and my family. I swear that I'm not collecting any money against you. I swear that I haven't even said one word against you. I swear that I don't have any weapons at home. This is what the Imam writes. The Khalifa, he writes back and he says to him, I know the family that you belong to. You are from our family. You are from Banu Hashim. We are cousins. And I believe what you say. But, and this is the way he phrased it, this is the way he started to put Imam alayhi salam in house arrest. What does he say? But to make sure that stuff like this doesn't happen, I want you to come to Samara. I want you to come to Samara and live here. This was house arrest. This is how that house arrest started. And when Imam came, the narrations, they state that the Khalifa, he didn't go to bring the Imam. No, he just told the soldiers that he had sent, they'll just take the Imam to that house and leave him there. Just take the Imam to that house and leave him there. And when is the first time that this Khalifa met the Imam, do you all know? In the middle of the night, he told one of his soldiers to go bring the Imam. He wants to see him. He wants to see him. And that was the first time he met Imam. At what age? In his 20s. Imam, he's become Imam at the age of 6. This imamat that he had, what type of imamat is it? One of his companions, he sees that Imam Naqi a.s, from one of his mujizat, he sees that there's a blind person that was brought to the Imam. And the Imam, he cures this blind person. And this companion, he says, after he cured that blind person, I see that the Imam, he makes a bird out of clay, he breathes into it, and that bird starts to fly. And I say to him, I say to the Imam, you're just like Isa. You're just like Isa ibn Maryam. And what does the Imam reply? He says, Ana minhu wa huwa minni. I am from him and he is from me. Who? Nabiullah Isa alayhi salam. I am from him and he is from me. Inshallah, on Thursday we'll go into what this means. How is Imam Naqi alayhi salam from Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, and how is Hazrat Isa alayhi salam from Imam Naqi alayhi salam? And what does that mean? Why? Because a phrase like this, the Holy Prophet has also used. What has he said about Imam Hussein alayhi salam? Hussein minni wa ana min al-Hussein. Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. We all understand what it means when the Holy Prophet says that Hussein is from me. He's his grandson. But what does it mean when the Holy Prophet says, Ana min al-Hussein? What does it mean when he says, I am from Hussein? The Imam, when he's saying that I am from Hazrat Isa and Hazrat Isa is from me, you have to look at it in this context. What did the Holy Prophet mean also? Inshallah, Thursday, I want to talk about one Ziraat al-Jamia that is from Imam Naqi alayhi salam, that recommended to read in the month of Rajab. Why? Because in it has the ma'rifat of the Imams. It consists the ma'rifat of the Imams. What is imamat? Inshallah, that's what I want to look at Thursday. But today, because not many people know about the biography of this Imam of ours, that's what I want to speak about, this biography. At the age of 6, he sees that this boy, he's 6 years old. And he says to one of his viziers that, do you remember his father? His father was a learned man. Do you think that he got that knowledge because someone trained him, someone taught him? Or do you think that knowledge came to him through some other means? And the man, he tells him, why does that matter? It shouldn't matter, but if it does matter to you, then I think someone taught him. So the Mutawakkil tells him, if that's the case, then his son, I want someone to teach him. I want someone to teach him. And he goes, what do you want them to teach? I want them to teach this boy that's 6 years old knowledge against Islam. The person that they brought, he himself was considered to be a jurist. He himself was considered to be a mufassir of Quran. He himself was considered to be a faqih. He himself was considered to be a mufti. He was considered to be someone who was known when it came to the grammar of Arabic. He came and he asked them, what do you want me to teach him? And they tell him, teach him stuff that is against Quran, against Islam. He goes, why would I teach him that? I myself am a Muslim. I'm a Muslim. Then they say, okay, teach him to hate who? The Maktabah al-Bayt alayhi salam. Teach him to hate the school of thought of the Ahlul Bayt. And this man, he wasn't from the school of thought. He goes, okay, no problem. He's 6 years old. He's a 6-year-old. 6-year-old. This is the time. You have to remember, at the age of 6, at the age of 7, at the age of 8, at the age of 9, that's when children, what do? They absorb everything that you tell them. They absorb everything that you tell them. This man, he thought that the children of Ali Muhammad were the same as every other child. So he says to him, okay, no problem. He takes him. A day later, someone comes to him and they ask him, so what's happened with that servant that you had from Banu Hashim? Meaning, that servant meaning Imam Naqi a.s. What happened to that boy? And he looks at him and he says, do not call him a servant. Do not call him a boy. Because every time I ask him to recite something from the Quran, he asked me, what surah do you want me to recite? I asked him to recite the longest surah in the Quran, which was Surah Al-Baqarah. He recited that surah, and I swear to God, it was just like the way Dawood would have recited. In such a voice that Hazrat Dawood, if I was alive to hear Hazrat Dawood, it would have been in that type of voice. And it was what? The longest of the surahs. Days later, they asked him again, what became or what's become of that servant of yours? What's become of him? The faqih, he goes, I want nothing to have to do with him. There's nothing I can teach him. Whenever I sit down and ask him about a verse of the Quran, he recites it completely. He tells me who it was revealed for. He tells me where it was revealed. He tells me if it was revealed in the daytime or the nighttime. There's nothing for me to teach him. In fact, he's the one who's teaching me. At the age of 6. He thought that he was just like any other child. Two, when this failed, what did they do? In the time of Imam Naqi a.s, at the age of 8, Imam Naqi a.s, he debated with whom? He debated with one of the fuqaha of the Abbasis. At the age of 8, they had brought this faqih to try to degrade the Imam and try to show the people that this knowledge that they claim, they don't have this knowledge. And what does he do? Yahya bin Aktham. He brings him again. Now this time he brings him for a second time. The first time when he was disgraced, it wasn't enough. He needed to be disgraced a second time. Yahya bin Aktham comes and he says, Mutawakkil tells him, I want you to ask him some questions. And he goes, who is this? And he tells him that this is the son of Muhammad Taqi. And he goes, that same Muhammad Taqi who I asked before? He goes, yes. He became hesitant. But he asked him some questions, and he says to him, Ya Ali, I have some questions for you, and I want you to reply. And the Khalifa, he says, if he doesn't reply, then he'd be disgraced. This is the knowledge of a what? 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old. 6, 7, 8. He goes, I have some questions regarding Hazrat Yaqub al-Islam. I have some questions regarding Hazrat Adam al-Islam. I have some questions regarding the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin. I have some questions regarding the Quran. And the Imam, he looks at him, he goes, what's your question? This is something everyone should realize. The Imams that we have, the knowledge that was given to them, there isn't a qaid of age when it comes to the knowledge of Imamat. There isn't, age is not a qaid. Salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. But he says to Yahya, what is it that you want? Yahya asks him, Yabna Rasulullah, the first question I want to ask is about Prophet Adam. What was that tree that he ate from? What was that tree that he ate from? And the Imam, he quickly replies that it was originally known as the tree of envy. It was known as the tree of envy. What does that mean? If you look at the tafsir of what that tree of envy was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Hazrat Adam not to go near that tree. Why? Because if he was to go near that tree, he would envy those creations of his who were superior to Hazrat Adam. He was going to envy those creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that were superior to Hazrat Adam. When he went near that tree and he ate from that tree, that's when he started seeing the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and that's when he envied the Ahlul Bayt. It's because of that envy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Adam to get down. Yahya, he says, you're right. Ibn Rasulullah, you're right. He goes, no. Muttasim, he goes, no, keep asking. Ask him another question. Yahya, he says, Ibn Rasulullah, Hazrat Sulaiman. Hazrat Sulaiman, he himself is a prophet. He asked, who can bring me the throne of Sheba? Who can bring me the throne of Bilqis? And when he asked that question from amongst the jinn, one of them says that I will bring it to you before you rise from your place, before you rise from your throne. And then someone else says that I will bring it to you before you even blink your eye. He asked the Imam, did Hazrat Sulaiman also not have that power? Could he not bring that throne before the blinking of an eye? Imam, he says, no, Hazrat Sulaiman truly had that power. But the only reason he asked was why? Because he wanted everyone to know who his successor would be. He wanted everyone to know who his successor would be. And that successor was Asif ibn Barakiyah. Then he goes on to say, another question I have is about Hazrat Yaqub alayhi. He goes, what's your question? What's your question? He goes, the sajdas that we do, is it not only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He goes, what's your question? How is it that a human being did sajda to another human being? How is it that a human being, and that to a prophet, did sajda to another human being? That's when the Imam, he says to Yahya, there's two types of sajdas in Islam. One is a sajda for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the second is a sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His obedience. One is a sajda for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another is a sajda in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The sajda that Hazrat Yaqub did to Hazrat Yusuf was not a sajda of worshipping Hazrat Yusuf. That sajda was being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The same way the angels bowed down in front of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. Why? Because it was a hukm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That same way Hazrat Yaqub bowed down to Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam. Why? Because it was a hukm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was a hukm of Allah. This was the sajda of obedience. It was a sajda of obedience. Then he says to him, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent Hazrat Musa alayhi salam with the white hand and He sent Hazrat Musa alayhi salam with the staff? Imam, he answered that question. He asked, why is it that Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, he was given these miracles of curing the blind, curing the leper and all of this? He answered that question. Then he asked him, why was it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Holy Prophet with the Quran and the Saif? Why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Holy Prophet with the Quran and the Saif? Saif meaning sword. And Imam alayhi salam, he himself, he describes what that sword is. He says the Holy Prophet was sent with the Quran. Why? Because in the time of the Holy Prophet, what was common? Speech was so common that people, they prided themselves over their speech. Poetry was to such an extent that people prided themselves over poetry. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Holy Prophet with speech that was better than the speech of the Arabs. What about the Saif? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send the Holy Prophet with the Saif? Imam, he says the Saif here is Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Holy Prophet with Amir al-Mu'mineen. Why? Because at that time, those Arabs, they prided themselves over what? At that time in the Arab world, in the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, you were considered to be a coward if you ran away from battle. You find this in history. Everyone considered you to be a coward if you ran away from battle, except for one person. If you ran away from one person, you weren't considered to be a coward. But if you ran away from any other person, you were considered to be a coward. That one person in history is Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. If you were to run away from Amir al-Mu'mineen, no Arab would dare call you a coward. Why? Because everyone was afraid of him. But if you were to run away from anyone else, you were considered to be a coward. Imam, he says that this is the reason. At that time of the Holy Prophet, everyone considered themselves to be warriors. When a real warrior came out to the battlefield, everyone ran away. This was the reason. When he asked this, then Yahya, he asked this question. He says, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, there's a question from the Quran that I want to ask you. He goes, what is it? He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, He says, وَلَوْ أَنَّمَا الْأَرْضَ مِنْ شَجَرَةٍ أَقْلَامٌ, which I started this lecture off with. He says in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, if all of the trees in the world were turned into pens, and the oceans were turned into ink, and then 7 more oceans or 7 more seas were added to these seas, they would still not exhaust the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You would still not be able to exhaust the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yahya, he asked the Imam, can you name me those 7 seas that are being talked about? The Imam, he says, those 7 seas that are being talked about are 1, the sea in Yemen, 2, the sea of Tabariya, the sea of Kibrit, and the sea of Bahran, the sea of Barhut, and the sea of Lisan, and the sea of Ceylan. Yahya, then he says, okay, you name me these 7 seas. Can you tell me about these words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Imam, he says that the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that can never be exhausted is us, Ahl Muhammad alayhi salam. Ahmad salli ala Muhammad. If you got all the trees and they were turned into pens, and the oceans and they were turned into ink, and then you added 7 more seas to those, and you were to write the merits of Al Muhammad, you would still not be able to exhaust their merits. you'll still not be able to exhaust their merits. After this incident, Al-Mu'tasim, he says to Imam, there was nothing for him to say. After this incident, he tells Yahya can go. Yahya leaves, and what does Imam do? Or what does Mu'tasim do? He leaves Imam alone for a bit. And then the next day, the same thing. In the middle of the night, bring the Imam out. In the middle of the night, bring the Imam out. The Imam, when he used to teach, whether it be Medina or whether it be in Samara, when he was asked questions, he would have, and still to this day, there are 3 books or 2 books that Imam Zaman al-Islam has, and he will come back with. When he comes, he will take out the real Bible, the real Torah, and the real Injil, the real Torah, and the real Zabur. But Sahifa Fatima, Imam Zaman al-Islam has. There's also another Sahifa of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Zaman al-Islam has. These 2 suhuf, these 2 books, Imam al-Islam has. And this Sahifa, what is this Sahifa, Imam Ali? Whenever a verse was revealed, Amir al-Mu'mineen would write down everything. This Sahifa, the Quran that Amir al-Mu'mineen wrote in his lifetime, is that Sahifa that I'm talking about. Amir al-Mu'mineen wrote the Quran down, and in that Quran, he wrote down the tafsir of the verses, when they were revealed, who they were revealed for, what their reason was, and whether or not this verse has been appended or not. Whether or not this verse has been rescinded or not. He wrote everything down. And this is that Sahifa that Imam Zaman al-Islam he's going to come with. And they ask questions, and Imam Naqi a.s, he used to reply from the same Sahifa. A lot of the fiqh questions that we have, they come from this Imam. For example, one of his companions, they ask the Imam, Ya ibn Rasulullah, or they write to the Imam, and they say that I know that we can't wear the fur of an animal that's not slaughtered Islamically. But I'm in a place where if I don't wear fur, it's looked down upon. If I don't wear fur, it's looked down upon. Even today, what do we have living in this country? It's difficult for us to wear leather clothes. Correct or no? It's difficult for us to wear leather clothes. This is a fiqhi masala. The fiqhi masala is, if you're certain that the leather that you're wearing has been slaughtered Islamically, you're more than welcome to wear it. You're more than welcome to wear it. But if you doubt, you have to do your research and find out. You can't just wear it. If you live in an Islamic country, you can wear leather. Closing your eyes, you can wear leather. Why? Because the leather that is made there is from animals that are slaughtered there. But in a non-Islamic country, the leather that is made here is going to be from animals that are not slaughtered Islamically. So this man, he asks, I'm in a country where the religion isn't majority Islam. The rulers are not Muslims. And I live in a community where if I don't wear fur, it's looked down upon. What should I do? The Imam, he says, look, he replies back. He says, you cannot wear any clothes that have not been slaughtered properly. Clothes from an animal that have not been slaughtered Islamically. Then that's when he writes back and he says that I live in a place like this where if I don't wear it, then it looks down. I'm going to be looked down upon. Then the Imam, he writes back, he says that then if that's the case, that people are going to look down upon you, then you can wear the fur of a beaver. The fur of a beaver. Even if it's not slaughtered Islamically. 1. 2. Ziyarat Jamia, inshallah, I will go over Ziyarat Jamia or parts of Ziyarat Jamia on Thursday when we talk about, or when we have the digestion for this same Imam Muhammad Taqi al-Islam. But there are 2 ziyarat. One is Ziyarat Jamia from Imam. The second is a ziyarat for the day of Ghadir for Amir al-Mu'mineen from the Imam. It's known as Ziyarat Ghadir, and these two ziyarat, they come from Imam Muhammad Taqi al-Islam. Ziyarat Jamia was written by the Imam. Why? Because at that time, what was happening? At that time, Mutawakkil alayhi, he had decided that he wanted to destroy the shrine of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. And the reason behind that is also ajib. It's a known fact that these last Abbasi Khalifas, they used to have plays, they used to have dances, they used to have dancers. And the history says that one of the dancers that he invited, or one of the women who got dancers, dancing women together, she went for ziyarat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. She went for that ziyarat in Shaban. When the dancer did not show up, the Khalifa, he asked where she was. And she says, oh, I went for Hajj. And he says, Hajj in Shaban? And she says, yes. I went for Hajj where? In Karbala. The only reason that he wanted the shrine of Imam Hussein alayhi salam to be destroyed was why? Because he didn't get that dancer in time. So what does he do? He tells his soldiers, he tells the Turks that he wants that destroyed. And what do? They try to destroy it with water. And when they try to destroy it with water, that water comes near, but it doesn't go over the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. It starts circling it. When it starts circling it, he gets really upset. When he gets really upset, he tells his soldiers that if that's not going to work, I want you to raise everything that's in the vicinity of that shrine. So what do? They take horses, they take cows, they take cattle, and when they get closer, the horses, the cattle, they're not moving any closer towards the grave. When that doesn't work, then he leaves it alone. It was these Khalifas that the Muslims consider to be Khalifas. They consider them to be their Imams. But what does he do? He leaves it alone. When they came, one of the companions of Imam alayhi salam, he comes to Imam Naqi alayhi salam and he says to him, Yabna Rasulullah, they're going to destroy the grave of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. And he says, should we stand up? Should we fight against them? And the Imam, he replies to him, you don't have to worry about the grave of my great-grandfather. You don't worry about that. That's not for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself will take care of it. But if you want to do the ziyarat and you can't, here, read this ziyarat. In that ziyarat is for every Imam. You can read that ziyarat in the grave of every Imam. But he says, do not worry about that grave. Make sure that you hold Imam Hussein alayhi salam in your heart. Make sure that he is in your heart. Do not worry about the grave. As long as he's in your heart, he will never die. He will never die. Ziyarat Jamia, inshallah we'll go over it. Do you know why Samara was chosen? Samara was chosen, why? Because in the time of Ma'mun Rashid, what was the Khalifa, what was his Khilafat? Where was his Khilafat? Do you all know? Baghdad. Ma'mun Rashid, Harun Rashid, their Khilafat was Baghdad. Ma'mun Rashid, later on, he changed it where? He took it? Khurasan. He took it up. Why? Because he himself was from Khurasan. He was half Persian. He took it to Khurasan. Samara, part of Iraq, they moved it to Iraq from Khurasan. And the reason they moved it was why? Because Samara was actually a camp. That's why these two Imams are known as Al-Askariyain. Al-Askariyain. There's two reasons. One is because they were both in this camp of Al-Askar. Two is because both of these Imams, when the tyrant of their time tried to show them how powerful they were, both of these Imams, with the ijadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they showed these two tyrants the army that they truly had. We all know the story of Imam Hassan Askari when he shows the tyrant of his time, his army. Imam Naqi a.s, he did the same thing. This is the reason that they're known as Askariyain. One of these two reasons. One, either because they were both stationed in Al-Askar, or two, because they both showed the jaysh, they both showed the army that they contained or they had in their hands. But Samra was chosen, it was far away from Medina, it was far away from the people that the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam had known. And it was only and only used for as a camp for soldiers. That was it. When the tyrant Mu'tasim, he was in his palace, Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salam, Imam Muhammad Taqi alayhi salam, Imam Ali Naqi alayhi salam. Where are they? In a small hut. Some narrations, they say 6, 7 different palaces the Khulafa had. And the Imam, he's in a small hut. When Mu'taz Billah, la'natullah alayh, when he came into power, he decided that now there are more and more people that are being guided by the Imam. There are more and more people that are coming towards the Imam. And if he doesn't do something, the people that are here, they're going to listen to no one but the Imam. And when he had this thought in mind, that's when he decided to poison our 10th Imam. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulallah. Sallallahu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Sallallahu alayki ya Siddiqatu Fatima. Sallallahu alayka ya Hasan al-Mujtaba. Sallallahu alayka ya Gharib al-Ghuraba. Ya Aba Abdullah al-Husayn. Brothers and sisters, this is the night that we commemorate the Shahadat of our 10th Imam. When this poison was given to the 10th Imam, he tells everyone, he tells the Shia that I want you to remember me when you go to one place. Whenever you go to Karbala, I want you to remember me on the doorsteps of my great-grandfather. Brothers and sisters, Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salam, He's Jawan now, Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salam. He's older now. He is taking care of his father. His father has been poisoned. Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salam, he himself, he comes, he cries over his father. He's the one who buries his father. He's the one who gives his father a kafan. But brothers and sisters, let's go to Karbala. Sayyid Sajjad alayhi salam, he's around the same age as Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salam. But when they were leaving Karbala, what does Sayyid Sajjad do? He throws himself over the body of Abdullah Hussein and he starts to cry. When he starts to cry, he says, Sajjad, why are you crying? He says, I want to
گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، 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 مولا علی نقی کو، مولا علی نقی کو کیوں غیر ہے ملایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، کچھ ہیں نبی کے دشمن، کچھ ہیں علی کے دشمن، کچھ ہیں نبی کے دشمن، کچھ ہیں علی کے دشمن، جو دین کا تلاش، جو دین کا تلاش اس پہ ہے ظلم ڈھایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، ہے چاک گریباں بھی زلفوں میں کاٹ بھی ہے چاک گریباں بھی زلفوں میں کاٹ بھی ہے، حسن عسکری نے بابا، حسن عسکری نے بابا کو جب تڑپتا پایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، عباسیوں نے ظلموں کی کر ہے اتحادی، عباسیوں نے ظلموں کی کر ہے اتحادی، بچوں کو سیدہ کے، بچوں کو سیدہ کے دیواروں میں چنوایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، گھر میں قبر بنی ہے غربت تو دیکھو شاکی، گھر میں قبر بنی ہے غربت تو دیکھو شاکی، دونوں جہاں کا مالک، دونوں جہاں کا مالک غربت میں دفنایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، گلشن میں سیدہ کے ایک پھول ہے مرجھایا، دادا کا پرسہ لینے آئے ہوں گے مولا مہدی، دادا کا پرسہ لینے آئے ہوں گے مولا مہدی، ہم نے دیا انہی کو، ہم نے السلام علیکم ابن فاطمة الزہرا سید النساء العالمین. السلام علیکم مولانا ابو الفضل عباس علیہ السلام. السلام علیکم قمر بنی ہاشم. السلام علیکم عبد الصالح طیب للہ ورسولہ. السلام علیکم علی بن حسین علیہ السلام. السلام علیکم اولاد الحسین علیہ السلام. السلام علیکم اصحاب الحسین علیہ السلام. السلام علیکم محمد بن علی علیہ السلام. السلام علیکم جعفر بن محمد علیہ السلام. السلام علیکم موسیٰ بن جعفر علیہ السلام. السلام علیکم علی بن موسیٰ علیہ السلام. السلام علیکم یا مولانا غریب الغرباء. السلام علیکم معین الضعفاء والفقراء. السلام علیکم شمس الشموس انیس النفوس جوال مدفون بیعزتوس. السلام علیکم محمد بن علی علیہ السلام. السلام علیکم علی بن محمد علیہ السلام. السلام علیکم حسن بن علی علیہ السلام. السلام علیکم یا مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان. علمان من فتنة الزمان. السلام علیکم یا خلیفۃ الرحمن. السلام علیکم شریک القرآن. السلام علیکم یا امام الانس والجان. اجل اللہ تعالی فرجک وسعد اللہ تعالی مخرجک وظہورک ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. اللہم صل علی محمد وآل محمد. اللہم کل ولیک الحجۃ ابن الحسن صلواتک علیہ وعلی آبائہ فی هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.